Two teenage sisters stood at the boarding gate, their tickets in hand, excitement buzzing in their hearts. But in seconds, that joy turned into cold disbelief. The agent's smile vanished. Their boarding passes were pulled away. Whispers, stares, a quiet refusal. No explanation, except for the way everyone looked at their skin. Stranded, humiliated, and fighting tears, they clutched a single lifeline, a phone call that could change everything. But what happens when the person on the other end has the power to bring an entire airport to a standstill? Jada and Nia were inseparable, not just because they were twins, but because life had taught them to rely on each other. At 17, they were used to the subtle stares, the whispered assumptions, the moments when their very existence seemed to make some people uncomfortable. But they had learned to rise above it, chasing dreams bigger than the small town where they grew up. This trip was supposed to be a celebration. Months of saving, planning, and anticipation had led to this morning, a journey to surprise their mom who was working overseas. They dressed in their favorite travel outfits, hair braided the night before, matching sneakers squeaking on the polished airport floors. The terminal buzzed with laughter, rolling suitcases, and boarding announcements. For a moment, they felt like any other travelers, free, anonymous, and unstoppable. But even as they sipped their lattes and checked their gate number, there was a flicker of unease, a gate agent's lingering glance, a security guard's subtle double take. They brushed it off, not realizing that in minutes, the trip they dreamed of would turn into a public humiliation, one that would test the limits of their dignity and their father's influence. They approached the gate with smiles wide, passports ready. The plane was boarding, and families shuffled forward in a slow, expectant line. Jada could already picture the moment they'd step onto the jet bridge, the rush of cool air, the hum of the engines. But when the twins reached the front, the gate agent's hand shot out like a barrier. "Please step aside." Confusion prickled in Jada's chest. She glanced at Nia. Maybe there was a problem with their seats? But no one explained. The line kept moving. Families with toddlers, businessmen with briefcases, couples holding hands, all waved through with practiced smiles. The twins stood there, clutching their tickets, watching their chance to board slip away with each passing traveler. Finally, the agent looked up. Her voice was low, but cutting. "You can't board this flight." "Why not?" Jada's voice trembled, but she tried to hold her ground. The woman's eyes flicked over them, once, twice, before she said something about security protocols and further verification. But her tone left no doubt. This wasn't about paperwork. This was about them. Their skin. Their presence. Passengers in line turned to stare, some with curiosity, others with a quiet, knowing sympathy. A few looked away entirely, pretending not to notice. The sting of humiliation was almost physical, burning hot in Jada's chest. They were escorted to the side, told to wait. Minutes dragged. The terminal's cheerful background noise now felt mocking. The laughter, the rolling wheels, the steady stream of travelers free to go where they pleased. Nia whispered, "What are they doing? We haven't done anything wrong." Jada didn't answer. She knew. Deep down, she knew. When they tried again to plead their case, another staff member appeared, this one sterner, less patient. He asked for more identification, questioned their travel purpose, demanded phone numbers to verify their story. Each question carried the same silent accusation: "You don't belong here." And then the blow that made Nia's knees go weak, the announcement over the loudspeaker calling their flight for final boarding. They were still standing behind the rope, powerless. Tears threatened, but Jada's anger arose above them. She pulled out her phone. There was one person she could call, a person whose voice could change this entire scene in an instant. She dialed. The phone rang once, twice. Then a deep voice answered. "Dad, they won't let us on." Her voice cracked. "They're saying—" She couldn't finish. A pause, a long, cold pause. Then, "Stay where you are." And with those words, the quiet in Jada's chest was replaced by a pulse of something new. Not hope, not yet, but the sense that the ground under this airport was about to shift. The airport seemed to hold its breath. The gate area buzzed with the usual chatter, but around Jada and Nia, there was an eerie stillness, as if everyone was waiting to see what would happen next.
It was their father, Caleb Monroe, CEO of one of the nation's largest logistics companies, a man who knew exactly how to make systems grind to a halt. He didn't look at his daughters first. He looked straight at the gate agent. His voice was low, but carried a weight that silenced the room. "Explain. Now." The agent stammered something about random checks, but Caleb's raised hand cut her off. "You stopped 2 paying passengers from boarding their flight," he said, his tone colder than the air-conditioned terminal. "You humiliated them in front of strangers. Tell me again, random, was it?" One of the managers stepped in, murmuring apologies, but Caleb's attention was locked on the staff who had denied his daughters. "No one boards until my girls are on that plane," he said evenly. "And no flights leave this terminal until I have a written explanation." And then it happened. An announcement over the PA. "All flights from Gate C are delayed until further notice." Gasps rippled through the waiting passengers. Phones were pulled out. Cameras started recording. Jada's heart pounded, not just from the sudden shift in power, but from the eyes now turning toward them. Some smiled in quiet satisfaction. Others frowned, irritated by the disruption. But for the first time since that morning began, the twins weren't invisible. Caleb turned to them, his expression softening just enough. "You ready to go home?" he asked. But in that moment, Jada wondered, would this be remembered as justice served, or just another story swept under the rug once the cameras stopped rolling? The delay lasted nearly an hour. Every minute, Jada and Nia felt the weight of dozens of eyes, some supportive, some impatient, some simply curious about the scene that had unfolded. Eventually, a senior operations manager escorted them back to the gate, tickets reprinted, seats reassigned. No apology could erase what had already been done, but the airline's sudden shift in tone was undeniable. They boarded before anyone else, walking the narrow jet bridge in silence. Inside the plane, Jada slid into her seat, staring out at the tarmac. The victory felt hollow. Yes, they were flying now, but only because their father had power, because his name could shake a system that would have otherwise ignored them. And that was the part that stung most. What about the people without a CEO in their contacts? The passengers who never made it past the gate? The ones whose stories didn't go viral, who had to swallow their dignity and walk away? The twins reached their destination hours later, greeted by their mother's embrace. But the memory of that morning stayed like a shadow. They realized that while their family had the means to push back, millions didn't. And racism wasn't always loud. It could be hidden in protocols, random checks, and polite smiles that masked suspicion. Airports are supposed to be gateways to anywhere, but for too many, they become walls. So maybe the question isn't whether this was a win, but how many others are still losing every single day.